It is really real, and I would never thought it would touch so closely, but domestic violence is real. Even for like smart, strong people.
In the late hours of October 11th, 2021, a pregnant 911 operator would be shot dead by live-in boyfriend for failing to abort. For a 31-year-old female 911 operator who had spent years receiving distressing emergency calls for one situation or another, what she didn't know was that soon one would be received for her. At around 9:15 p.m., what was supposed to be a peaceful evening turned into a nightmare. Her live-in boyfriend would make a horrifying phone call to 911. In a calm yet unsettling tone, he confessed to shooting his pregnant girlfriend. Upon arriving at the scene, investigators found her lifeless body with a gunshot wound to the head, but no sign of the caller or the killer. He had fled the scene, but someone else had witnessed the shooting, someone no one could have imagined. There's a painful familiarity to this story. 22-year-old Mariah Coleman, remember her? A beautiful 8-month pregnant woman whose life and that of her unborn child would be shattered in a blink of an eye. Her case, once covered on this channel, mirrors the heartbreak we're seeing again today. Just like Tanajwa, she would tragically be shot dead for revenge. If you haven't watched that one yet, I'll link it at the end. It's a heartbreaking echo. Now let's look at the life and death of Tanajwa McMurray. Born on September 20th, 1990 in Elizabeth, New Jersey, 31-year-old Tanajwa McMurray, lovingly called T, spent her early years in Germany before moving to Fayetteville, North Carolina. She was known for her intelligence, creativity, and an inherent desire to help others, qualities that were evident from a young age. As a child, she was already recognized for her academic excellence, earning a spot in the gifted classes by the first grade. Her love for learning and helping others continued into adulthood, guiding her career path. After high school, Tanajwa attended Elizabeth City University, where she earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. It was at this time she would give birth to her 10-year-old daughter. But her passion for service didn't stop there. It led her to a career in law enforcement. Beginning as a correctional officer, she quickly advanced, becoming the youngest officer to achieve the rank of sergeant, a testament to her determination and work ethic. Her commitment to public service extended beyond corrections when she transitioned into a 911 dispatcher role with Cumberland County, where she worked until the tragic events of that fateful night. Despite Tanajwa's strength and independence, she kept a side to her hidden from her family. Tanajwa's relationship with 27-year-old Willie Earl Moore. At first glance, it seemed stable, but as time went on, it would reveal its darker side in the most tragic of ways. While Tanajwa had kept the relationship under wraps, especially from her family, it was clear that things were far from perfect. She had concealed the full extent of her connection with Willie, likely out of fear of her family's judgment and disapproval, but her mother, who had always been protective, sensed something was off. When she first met Willie, her intuition told her that there was something wrong about him, a gut feeling she couldn't shake. Meanwhile, as time went by, subtle changes began to occur, and Tanajwa's behavior became harder to ignore. One of the most noticeable changes was her daughter's shift in behavior. Tanajwa's daughter, who had always been close to her mother, began spending more time at her grandmother's house. The once strong bond between mother and daughter seemed to fracture. It was a sign that something was amiss, though Tanajwa's family wasn't sure of the details. Tanajwa's growing distance from her daughter raised red flags for those who were closest to her, and the shift in the child's behavior was unsettling. It was as if the warmth and safety that Tanajwa had once provided had been slowly replaced by an unknown tension. But then the people around Tanajwa, especially her mother, began to sense the toxic influence of Willie, though they couldn't pinpoint the exact cause. But the tension in the household was about to escalate. Around this time, Willie began staying with Tanajwa, and his presence in the home began to alter the dynamic. While Tanajwa's family was uncomfortable with his growing presence, they didn't have concrete reasons to confront her about him. However, Tanajwa, perhaps blinded by love or a desire for normalcy, chose to ignore the red flags and continued her relationship with Willie. Soon, Tanajwa found herself pregnant with Willie's child. The news of the pregnancy should have been a joyous occasion, but it added further strain to an already fragile situation. Little did Tanajwa know, this would set off a chain of events that would spiral out of control. Despite these troubling signs, Tanajwa remained entrenched in the relationship, perhaps convinced that things would improve or that she could handle the strain. But in the end, this relationship, one that had been hidden away from the scrutiny of her family, would spiral into an unimaginable tragedy. On the night of October 11, 2021, Tanajwa, who was 5 months pregnant at the time, tragically lost her life. The evening began like any other, but things quickly took a dark turn. At around 9:15 p.m., Tanajwa's live-in boyfriend, Willie, made a chilling phone call to 911. In a calm yet unsettling tone, he confessed to shooting his pregnant girlfriend, stating that she was lying responsive in their home. He informed the dispatcher that Tanajwa's 5-year-old daughter was in the house, alone and possibly in danger, before saying he was leaving the scene. As Willie's confession echoed through the 911 call, authorities were immediately dispatched to the Pittsville home where the couple had been living. Upon their arrival, the officers found a heart-wrenching scene. Tanajwa was lying lifeless in the living room with a single gunshot wound to the head, but no sign of the caller or the killer. He had fled the scene, but someone else had witnessed the shooting, someone no one could have imagined. Willie had fled the scene, but someone else had witnessed the shooting, a young child. Investigators quickly uncovered that Willie was on parole for previous offenses, adding to the surge of suspicion surrounding him. As they conducted their investigation, they interviewed several key witnesses, including Tanajwa's close family members and co-workers, who described her as a woman who had been full of potential and promise. Many of Tanajwa's colleagues at the 911 dispatch center, where she worked, reported noticing a shift in her behavior in the months leading up to her death. She had always been known for her upbeat and compassionate personality, but now she seemed distant and withdrawn. According to those who worked closely with her, there were moments when she appeared visibly shaken and exhausted, which her co-workers now realize may have been signs of emotional distress caused by her relationship with Willie. But perhaps the greatest casualty of this tragic event was Tanajwa's daughter, a young girl who lost not only her mother, but her childhood, as she was forced to bear witness to the violence that shattered her family. Tanajwa's daughter, who had always been a lively and happy child, now faced the immense pain of losing her mother in such a violent and horrific way.
We begin tonight with a mother heartbroken, demanding justice after her pregnant daughter was shot and killed inside her Fayetteville home. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Lena Tillett.
And I'm Gerald Owens. Tanajwa McMurray was just 31 years old and a local 911 dispatcher. WRL's Chris Levengood spoke exclusively with her mother tonight. It's a story you will only hear on WRAL.
She gives me smiles. She gives me joy.
In an instant, a woman who took the calls from others in need of help in her Fayetteville home on Pittsfield Drive.
She will always sacrifice a lot of things for her sibling, sacrifice a lot of stuff for family. That was my daughter.
That woman was Tanajwa McMurray, and her mother, Tasha, is in pain. She took a moment during our talk and revisited that painful moment on Monday when she got the call from police.
And I'm like, please just tell me is my daughter okay? And they was like, no. And all I could do was throw the phone down and just scream.
Scream, she said, until she couldn't anymore. Tasha says her daughter, a 911 dispatcher for both Harnett and Cumberland counties, moved to Fayetteville to take care of her. When Tanajwa was Tasha says that wasn't the only life taken from the McMurray family.
Tanajwa was, at the time of she was 5 months pregnant.
Now, the 31-year-old woman, who Tasha McMurray says was smart, caring, and loving, won't be able to take dispatch calls or calls from her loving mother ever again.
It's nothing worse than that. Nothing, anything you would think of that could happen to you is something happening to your child. And that's my worst nightmare.
That was Chris Lovingood reporting. Police haven't made any arrests in this case.
October 17th, 2021. The investigation into Tinajwa's death took a crucial turn when police arrested Willie Earl Moore. After fleeing the scene, Willie had turned himself in days after being on the run, where he was charged with first-degree murder, the murder of an unborn child, possession of a firearm by a felon, and several other charges. Authorities had little doubt about Willie's involvement in the crime, given his confession during the 911 call, though the details of what had led to the shooting remained unclear. Willie's arrest brought a sense of relief to Tinajwa's family, who had been waiting for justice. However, the arrest was just the beginning of a long and painful legal process. While the family was hopeful that Willie would face the full extent of the law for his crime, they were still left to grapple with the harsh reality that Tinajwa's life had been taken so violently. For her mother, it was a moment of mixed emotions: anger at the brutality of the crime and grief for the daughter she had lost. But Willie had a different version of events. He maintained that his actions were in self-defense, offering various versions of the story to investigators. According to Tinajwa's mother, Willie had claimed that Tinajwa had tried to attack him and that they had struggled over the weapon. However, forensic evidence contradicted Willie's claims. Investigators confirmed that there had been no struggle over the gun, as Willie had previously claimed. Forensic experts determined that Tinajwa had been shot from a distance, suggesting a premeditated act rather than a spontaneous confrontation. This new information strengthened the prosecution's case, making it clear that Willie had executed the crime with intention, not in self-defense, as he had previously stated. The inconsistencies in his story were glaring, and the evidence painted a clear picture of what had happened that night. Willie had shot and killed Tinajwa in cold blood. Surveillance footage obtained from the neighborhood where the shooting occurred revealed new details that led authorities to reassess the timeline of events. The footage showed Willie leaving Tinajwa's house shortly before the shooting, confirming the timeline of his actions and further validating his role in the crime. Additionally, investigators uncovered new witness statements that provided further context about Moore's behavior in the days leading up to the shooting. Friends of Tinajwa reported that Moore had become increasingly possessive and volatile. These revelations painted a clearer picture of the abusive dynamics in their relationship, which had been kept secret from Tinajwa's family and close friends. They now understood how deep the manipulation had been, and how Moore had managed to isolate Tinajwa from the people who cared most about her. On June 12, 2025, 3 years and 8 months after Willie Earl Moore was arrested and charged with Tinajwa's murder, he would be sentenced. Willie entered an Alford plea to charges of second-degree murder and murder of an unborn child in the death of Tinajwa McMurray, his pregnant girlfriend. An Alford plea allows a defendant to maintain innocence while acknowledging that prosecutors have enough evidence to secure a conviction. Willie was sentenced to more than 2 decades in prison. Tinajwa's family, though devastated by their loss, felt a sense of relief when the verdict was handed down. It was the justice they had fought so hard and long for, but it could never bring Tinajwa back. Her absence was felt deeply in every corner of their lives, and while the legal battle had ended, the emotional scars would remain forever.
Murray never thought her daughter would also be a victim.
It is really real. And I would never thought it would touch so closely, but domestic violence is real. Even for smart, strong people.
On October 11th, Tinajwa was found in the home she shared with her boyfriend, Willie Earl Moore. Tinajwa was 5 months pregnant with the couple's child, who also did not survive. Tasha said she does not believe this was the first instance of violence in the home.
Parents, if you got a child in a situation and you know something don't feel right, don't matter, just get involved. Because the day that the situation happened, she bought me her safe with all her important paperwork, everything. And that's the first time she ever did that.
McMurray believes her daughter didn't tell her the extent of the violence in the home because she knew her family would be upset. Tasha urges others in a similar situation to speak up and get help.
She was definitely my twin. She was my twin.
The outpouring of public support for Tanajwa's family continued to grow as the case gained more media attention. Tanajwa's mother became a vocal advocate for her daughter, sharing her grief and urging others to recognize the red flags of abuse in their own relationships. She reminded parents, especially those with children in abusive relationships, that no one should have to suffer in silence. Her message resonated with many, and the community rallied behind her, organizing vigils, fundraising efforts, and awareness campaigns about domestic violence. Tanajwa's story became a symbol of the urgent need for intervention and prevention, and her family used their platform to advocate for change. Tanajwa's mother, though still deeply mourning, found strength in her desire for justice. She used her pain to fuel her mission, reminding everyone that her daughter's life, her talents, her dreams, and her love for her family were taken too soon. She also expressed how she had always encouraged Tanajwa to speak out and seek help, but couldn't fathom why her daughter had not confided in her about the abuse. The family began to question whether they could have done more to help Tanajwa, and the guilt over not intervening earlier weighed heavily on them. She also shared her pain about the complexity of dealing with grief, noting how important it was to stay strong for Tanajwa's daughter, who was left behind. As for Tanajwa's daughter, the trauma of witnessing her mother's death was immense for her. She struggled with anger, had issues in school, and was eventually placed in therapy. While she is thriving now, the emotional scars linger. In the days following Tanajwa's death, her family was overwhelmed by the outpouring of support from the community. Friends, family, and colleagues all rallied around Tanajwa's family, offering condolences and sharing memories of her. Her colleagues at the 911 dispatch center, where Tanajwa had worked tirelessly to help others in their time of need, expressed their deep sadness and admiration for her. Tanajwa's mother shared that people who had worked with her daughter and been close to her throughout her career had come forward to speak about her character, further reinforcing the legacy of kindness and dedication Tanajwa had built in her short life. Tanajwa's death sparked a broader conversation about the prevalence of domestic violence, especially in young relationships. In schools, in churches, and across social media platforms, the story of this vibrant woman, whose life was stolen, resonated deeply with others who had experienced similar struggles. People began sharing their own stories of abusive relationships, and many began to speak out against the normalization of violence. Tanajwa's story became a reminder that abuse could happen to anyone, regardless of how strong, smart, or independent they appeared. In memory of Tanajwa, a scholarship was set up in her name to support young women pursuing careers in criminal justice. It was a small but meaningful tribute to the life she had planned to lead, helping others in the way she had always wanted to. As the years passed, the memory of Tanajwa McMurray lived on in the hearts of her family, her friends, and the community she had served. Her tragic end, though painful, served as a reminder of the importance of speaking out against abuse, supporting those in need, and fighting for justice in the face of tragedy. Her legacy was one of resilience, strength, and unwavering love for her family. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one.